Session 7 of the Numeracy lecture series. Master Formulae. Always remember to give the units with your answers. We're going to start with basic food proportions, just to try and illustrate what I mean by Master Formulae. So we've given you a recipe for tacos, and 12 shells, 120 grams of sauce, 35 grams of seasoning, 500 grams of minced beef, serves 4 people. I need a recipe for 12 people. So looking at it, you know straight away, I've got 3 times as many people, so I'm going to need 3 times the amount of ingredients. You're then going to multiply each and every ingredient by 3, and you get the right amount of ingredients that you need. Basic, straightforward math. Yeah? Okay. Let's try a question from a GCSE Maths paper in 2008. Here are the ingredients needed to make 8 pancakes. You've got 300 ml of milk, 1 egg, 120 grams of flour, 5 grams of butter. Jacob needs to make 24 pancakes. How much milk does he need? To do that, you say, okay, 24 is 3 times 8. So you therefore need 3 times the amount of the milk, which is 900 ml. Kathy makes 12 pancakes. How much flour does she need? This time it's not quite as simple, because you've got to get the relationship between 8 and 12. You could do all that faffing, or you could just say to yourself, I know that 24 pancakes is 3 times 8. 12 is half of 24. So 120 times 3 divided by 2 gives me 180. That's a quick way of working out the relationship between 8 and 24, between 8 and 12, because 8 obviously doesn't divide equally into 12 like it does for 24. But because you've done the math for 24 and you can see the relationship between 24 and 12, you could just say to yourself, well, that's just half. So therefore, if I take the original relationship and then divide that by 2, I will get what I need to do. And that's how you can work out the flour. If it works better for you to say that it's 120 grams to make 8 pancakes, I want to make 12 pancakes, so it's 12 over 8 times 120, that's fine too. Whatever system works for you is fine, as long as you do the correct math and you work as fast as you can. Okay, so that's just illustrating the other way. Okay, so Master Formulae. Instead of having a recipe for cooking, you now have a list of ingredients to make a particular drug. For example, the mathematics you will be using is the same, such as proportions, ratios, totals, percentages, fractions, and decimals. So instead of making tacos or pancakes, you're now going to make up a drug mixture. 1 gram equals to 1 milliliter for these calculations, and that's what you need to remember. 1 gram is 1 milliliter. Squill pastils. This is what will be given to you. To make 1 squill pastil, this is the recipe, I suppose, if you want to call it. This is the ingredients list and the quantities that you need to make 1. The question will be something like, this is for 1 pastil, but we need 20. The technique here is then to multiply each ingredient by 20, or double it and multiply by 10. Again, whatever system works for you to get the quickest and the correct answer. So if you then take each ingredient in turn, you do 0.03 times 20 to give you the squill extract, the 0.075 times 20 to give you the tincture, the 0.25 times 20 to give you the cinnamic acid, the 0.6 times 20 to give you the benzoic acid, and then the 0.02 times 20 to give you the glacial acetic acid and purified honey. So this then becomes your recipe, your ingredient list, or your master formulae to make 20 squill pastils. What we could do instead is say, what if instead we are given 5.4 milligrams of benzoic acid? and unlimited quantities of all the other components. How many pastils can we now make, and how much of each component do we need? The question's been flipped over. Rather than telling you, this is what I've got to make 1 and I want to make 20, we're now saying to you, you've got one of the ingredients, in this case benzoic acid, 5.4 milligrams. So the implication is that you're going to use up all 5.4 milligrams of benzoic acid. If that's how much of that ingredient you're using, how much are you going to use of everything else, and how many pastils can you now make? Now the quick and easy way of doing this is you compare the two values for benzoic acid. The original formula had 0.6 milligrams and you're now being told you have 5.4. Can you see a connection anywhere between them? I'm hoping the answer to that is yes, in that you can see that 5.4 is 9 times 0.6, because if you know your times tables, you know that 6 9s are 54. The fact that it's got decimals in there, it just means you need to be careful as to you working it out to make sure that you get 5.4. So we therefore need 9 times each of all the other components too. So we've got 9 times the amount of benzoic acid, so it stands to reason we'll have 9 times the amount of everything else. If you then go ahead and multiply all the other ingredients by 9, you should be getting these values. The answer therefore is that it will make 9 pastils. So you've answered the question fully here. One, you've worked out that you're going to make 9 pastils, and the other thing is you've worked out the amount of individual ingredients. Note, at every stage the units have been put down. You must remember to put the units down or you will lose points. So let's try another one. Let's give you a formula for Calamine lotion, the oily one. That's what it says to you. To make 1,000 milliliters, that's the amount of stuff that you need. The question could look like, this makes 1,000 milliliters, but we want 250 milliliters. Compare the two quantities to decide on the easiest method of calculation. Now I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I know that there's a relationship between 250 and 1,000. So dividing by 4 is the quickest way to do it, because 250 is a quarter of 1,000. So all I need to do at this stage is go and divide everything by 4. And that will tell me how much I need of everything to make 250 milliliters. So if we work that out, 50 divided by 4, 10 divided by 4, 5 divided by 4, 500 divided by 4. And that will then give you 250 milliliters of lotion. I'm hoping that besides showing you how to actually work these out, you're seeing the level of dividing, multiplying that's going to be needed to be done in your heads without calculators. It's very easy at this stage, and often I find commonly that students make mistakes with the decimal points. You must pay attention to where your decimal points are going, because it's very easy to write down 125 instead of 12.5. But of course that would be completely wrong, so you need to pay a lot of attention to your numeracy skills over here. So another way, the same formula is given to you, but another question could be given to you is, we have 25 grams of wool fat and unlimited amounts of everything else. How much calamine lotion will be able to make now, and how much of all the other ingredients will we need? So as previously, we look at this. We're saying that we've got 25 grams of wool fat. In the original formula given to us, we used 10 grams of wool fat. So the first thing you note is that you're going to be able to make more, because you've got more wool fat. So whatever your answer is, it's going to be more than 1,000 milliliters. You compare the two things. You've got 25 grams rather than 10 grams, which means it's 2.5 times as much. Quick and easy relationship between the two of them. In that case, all you then have to go and do is take the ingredients and multiply them all by 2.5. So the calamine times 2.5, oleic acid times 2.5, arachis oil times 2.5, and the calcium hydroxide by 2.5. and that will tell you that you can make 2,500 mils. So that's a quick and easy way of getting these questions in. Of course, for the purpose of the examples, there are some nice and easy relationships to spot. Life might not always be that simple, but the idea is that once you've grasped the technique of doing this, you can then apply any numbers to that method. So let's try another one. This time we're going to make calcium carbonate powder. That's what it looks like. It's given you the ingredients and there's a question mark next to the total. So the first thing that we need to do here is to find the total amount this makes. That's simple enough. All right? All you're doing at this stage is adding up the individual ingredients to see how much that comes to. So you could put that down as 1,000 grams or 1 kilogram. Remember the units. At this stage, we might then be asked, how much of each component do we need to make 450 grams? So like we've done in the past, we need to work out a relationship. We know that 125 is an eighth of 1,000. We know 250 is a quarter of 1,000, so that's how we know that 125 is an eighth of 1,000. So we need an eighth of 450 grams for the light kaolin and heavy magnesium. So you divide 450 by 8. You then compare 375 to 125. We see that it is 3 times as much. So we need 56.25 times 3 of both calcium. It was easy enough in this case that of the 4 ingredients, 2 each had the same quantities. So that one answer works for both of them. Another way of doing this is you could say 450 to 1,000. What's the relationship there? It's not the easiest, and it would be in this case 2 and 2 ninths. If you can do that and that's your strength, then fine, you work that relationship out and you multiply every ingredient by it. That's a standard technique. But if the relationship is not so simple and we start going into complicated fractions, then you might say to yourself, okay, there's another way of doing this, and that is saying to myself that I know 125 is an eighth of 1,000, so I need an eighth of 450. And working it out that way. Okay. So another formula, Diamorphine Linctus. We've been told that this is for 1,000 mils, and we only need 300 mils. Compare the totals to decide on the easiest method of calculation to use. Divide by 10, that'll give you 100 mils, and multiply by 3 for 300 mils. That seems to be the easiest way of doing this. That's a relationship between the two. So if we actually do that, divide 600 by 10, giving 60, multiply by 3 gives you 180. 12 divided by 10, then 1.2 times 3 gives you the tartrazine. The 250 divided by 10 gives you 25, multiply that by 3 gives you 75 for the glycerol. And you don't need to do the same calculation again because it's the same for the oxymel. So again, this is showing you another way of working out the relationship and getting it done quickly and in your head partly. Add enough syrup to make 300 mils. Okay, another formula, Paracetamol Elixir Paediatric. This is what it takes to make that. The question could look like, if you've got 60 mils of alcohol, 95%, how much elixir can you make and how much of each component do you need? So in the formula, alcohol 95%, you've got 100 mils that's being used. We're now saying to you, you've only got 60 mils of that ingredient. So how much can you make? Again, at this stage, you're now looking at it and saying to yourself, okay, I'm going to compare the two amounts. I've got 100 mils and I've got 60 mils. And how am I going to get from one to the other? In this case, you could divide by 10 and multiply by 6. That gives you 60. And that probably is the easiest way of doing it. You could divide by 5 and multiply by 3. But I find that dividing by 10 is much, much, much easier than anything else. So there is an easy method there. That's what I strongly suggest that you use. So if we followed that and applied it to all the components of the elixir, you will know how much altogether you have. So let's do that. 24 divided by 10 multiplied by 6. 2 divided by 10 multiplied by 6. 20 divided by 10 multiplied by 6. 25 divided by 10 multiplied by 6. And propylene glycol is 60 milliliters because it's the same as the alcohol, so you don't need to do that one again. Save yourself some work. Syrup, divide by 10 multiplied by 6, and you get 165. So therefore, the total, you've got 1000 divided by 10 multiplied by 6 gives you 600. So top up with glycerol to this amount. And that's how you do it. So the point of doing all these various examples is to show the different variations in technique, or very slight variations in technique, depending on what the numbers involved are. So whether you can find an easy, quick relationship, or whether you need to do a couple of steps to get somewhere. But the idea of these examples is to show to you, because the technique is the same, and there's only limited types of questions that can be asked about this, but it's just identifying what the question is, what it needs, so what the answer needs to be, remembering the units, and then working out the quickest and easiest way to get there. So another example, let's look at Hypromellose eye drops. In this case, you've been given the formula there, and we want to make 350 mils of these eye drops. Now again, the quickest and simplest thing to do is to say that the formula takes me to 100 mils. I want to make 350 mils. I'll compare the totals for each. 350 is 3.5 times as much as 100. So what I need to do is multiply everything by 3.5. Sounds easy enough. So go for it. If I do the 300 by 3.5, the 190 by 3.5, 370 by 3.5, 0.2 by 3.5. That gives me all the amounts I need for all the individual ingredients. Remember the units. Always remember the units. They're there, and make sure they stay there. You'll then need to top up to the 350 ml that is required for the purified water. So again, another way of getting to the end. Now say for example in the case of the Hypromellose eye drops, we say this time you have 75 milligrams of the Hypromellose and unlimited amounts of everything else. How much do we need, and how much of the eye drops can we make? So again, what do we do? The first thing that we do when faced with a question like this is compare. We compare the two amounts. You've got 300, which is what the formula given to us is, 75, which is what's being asked of us. 75 is a quarter of 300. Some people will spot this straight away, others won't. Try and see if you can quickly see a relationship. So knowing your halves and your, and stuff like that, doubles and stuff, it's a very, very, very good tool in numeracy. So knowing that half of 300 is 150 and that half of 150 is 75 gets you to this very quickly. And if you've spotted that relationship, it means you can do this very, very quickly. It just means you take all the ingredients and divide by 4. The potassium chloride, the benzalkonium chloride, and then the purified water. Divide it all by 4 and it tells you how much you can make. Okay? Right. Another way this question can be done is like this. Calculate the amount of each ingredient required to make 0.47 litres of the formula below. And then the formula turns up. Ask yourself at this stage, what do I need to do first? I can see that it's saying to me that I can make to 5 millilitres. I need to calculate the amount of each and every ingredient to make 0.47 litres. So, how many times does 5 mils go into 0.47 litres? you need to be extra careful here. You're working with different units, so the conversions, when doing the conversions, don't lose sight of the decimal points. Make the conversion right, because you make one mistake here, that then follows through into the rest of the calculation. So it's very important you pay particular attention to when you're doing your multiplying and divides by hundreds and thousands. So 0.47 litres becomes 470 millilitres. There are 20 lots of 5 millilitres in 100. We know that. So therefore there are 400 lots. So in 400, there will be 80 lots. Yeah, stands to reason. There's 20 in 5 of 5 millilitres in 100. So therefore 80 in 400. But it's not 400 we want, it's 470 that we want. There are 14 lots of 5 millilitres in 70. So altogether, 80 plus 14 is 94. So I know that 94 times 5 gives me 470. This is a quick way again of working out the relationship between the two things. Once I've done that, I just need to multiply each of the given quantities by 94, and you deal with the percentages differently. So that's a new thing here. In this one, the ingredients, some of the ingredients have got percentages in them. So if we look at that, so we've worked out the 94. We know we're multiplying everything by 94. So that's stage 1 done. Tick. Stage 2 is actually doing the conversions. Now if you look, the first thing we can do is the water. That goes to 5 mils. We need to multiply by 94. That takes us to 470 mils, or 0.47 litres. Okay? Put in the new total first. And now we'll deal with the percentages. 2 of the ingredients are percentage. So how do we actually then work out how much we need for 470 mils? Well, this is how you do it. The orange syrup. 10% of 470 mils is 47 mils. So if it says 10% volume to volume, so that means 10% of the final product is the orange syrup. So you take 10% of 470 and the answer is 47. So the orange syrup is 47 mils. Then you need to work out the tartrazine. 1% is 4.7 mils, because 10% is 47. So 0.01% is 0.47 mils, 0.01 is 0.047, and 0.001 is 0.0047. So the answer to that then is, you need 47 mils of orange syrup and 0.0047 mils of tartrazine. Very important at this stage to remember to do your decimal point movements correctly, or it can cost you lots and lots and lots of marks. So what we've done is gone through several examples of master formulae and the types of questions that can result from it. Hopefully I've given you some techniques on how to do the comparisons and work out the relationship between two numbers, so that you can do that quickly and easily, and again without a calculator. The techniques generally are quite simple here. It's applying what you've learned correctly that's going to get you the points. So some top tips to finish with. Assume 1 gram is equivalent to 1 mil, should you need to. Watch out for changes in units. So example, the formula is given in grams and the answer is needed in milligrams. And look for relationships between parts rather than to totals. So if you can see 50 and 25, that's halving. If you can see 50 to 500 is multiplying by 10, 50 to 1000 is multiplying by 20. If you can find relationships like those, then that's fantastic, and you can do the numeracy a lot quicker and easier. Master formula is a simple calculation, is a simple technique. It's applying the numeracy correctly that's going to get you there. And always remember to put the units in.